Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Social Z Franchise Happy Hour. I'm your host, Calvin Smith, as usual, coming from my offices in the beautiful Destin, Florida. It's a little cold and chilly right now, but still sunshine and palm trees outside, so can't complain too much. We've got Mark with us, awesome entrepreneur and consultant and businessman coming from, I believe, the great city of New York. Mark, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Calvin. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Mark, are you in New York City proper, or where are you located?
Yeah, so I lived in the New York metro area for a long time. I'm actually in northeastern Pennsylvania 9 months out of the year. Yeah, beautiful, middle of nowhere, Delaware River. You get the ocean, I get the Delaware River.
Awesome. Well, good to know that. And so you spend most of your time in Pennsylvania is it for business, or is your family there, or what takes you over there?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I wanted to be in business for myself was to have the flexibility that whatever place made me happy, I could do that. So, I work for myself, so I like it here. So that's really the driver.
Awesome. Well, on that note, Mark, tell us a little bit about your business and your franchise, and I know you also have another business as well. If you could kind of just give us an introduction on what you spend your time on and what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a franchise consultant. So as a franchise consultant, I help individuals explore business ownership through franchising, walk them through a very well-defined process to see if that is something that makes sense for them, and if it is, matching them to the right brands, and ultimately helping them make an informed decision by coaching them through the due diligence process. So that's 95% of my time. And the other 5%, I'm a partner in a franchise called P3. We're franchisees. It's a cost reduction business. I have a partner, Howard, who runs the day-to-day of that, but I'm involved in that as well. And so, the two businesses keep me pretty busy, and if not, the dogs and my wife do.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm somewhat familiar with P3, Mark. I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but Aaron Stahl and I are from the same general area, and we met in Fayetteville, Arkansas, a number of years back, and had beer a few times, and we've actually done a little bit of work together, and he's definitely taken that brand and done some really cool things. So, how long have you been associated with P3?
Pre-COVID, so about 2 years.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great brand and fabulous support. Whenever we need something, we pick up the phone and they support us tremendously.
Sure. Now, did you find P3, Mark, through your franchise consulting, or how did you get associated with them?
Yeah, so I started the franchise consulting before, and that's how I found it. Yeah, and I've placed several candidates in there as well. So I think 3 or 4 franchisees of P3 are, my clients, because great experience for me, and love to share the wealth and the opportunities.
Sure. So interested to hear more about your franchise consulting. I've spoken to a number of franchise consultants or recruiters, or people kind of define themselves in different ways, but how did you get into that space, and what is sort of your focus on that part of your business?
Yeah, sure. It was so I'll give you a little bit of my background, and then it'll sort of make sense. So I was a corporate guy for a long time, some large organizations, Morgan Stanley, Wachovia, in training and development with them, sales with them, ultimately ran the training department for Wachovia's brokerage arm. And then from there, got into commercial real estate, ran sales teams, grew businesses very successfully, and enjoyed it. And, I ultimately had probably 200 or 300 people working under me. And that meant I had 2,000 or 3,000 problems, and worked long hours and, got compensated well, but just wasn't probably pretty, as happy as I wanted to be. And so decided I wanted to do something on my own, and looked at a lot of different opportunities, whether individual businesses, consulting, and, landed on the franchise consulting. Just thought it was a great opportunity because it was something I wanted to do was run my own business, but really didn't have an idea. And then the franchise consulting and franchising in general kind of gives you that idea and that structure and that opportunity to really be an entrepreneur. So loved that and got into it, and, love talking to people and helping people. My whys, I ask my clients what their why is, what their deep underlying motivation. For me, I want freedom. I want autonomy. I don't want anybody, controlling what I do, A, and B, I don't want to be responsible for other people either. So I don't want a big team that I had to manage. And so those were the drivers. And of course, I want to make a good living and I want to add value to people's lives. And not a lot of things when I was looking that would ultimately give me that opportunity, but franchise consulting did. And this year I've placed somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 plus units, which means I've helped a lot of people, and that's great. And some of them were people who were in transition, were leaving jobs. Some of them left jobs to do the business ownership opportunities. And some of them are doing it on the side as an opportunity to build wealth. So just a lot of different people that I've had the opportunity to help, and who, I can look back and because self-actualization is I think what we're all shooting for, a best version of ourselves, and to enable people to do that is great. And, so I love what I do. But that's ultimately how I transitioned into it.
Sure. So it sounds like, Mark, that, you had, obviously you were successful on the corporate side, and, worked with some big brands, and, what was it that, obviously you've mentioned two things. One, kind of having the freedom and autonomy to kind of be where you want and do what you want. And then having 200 plus people would stress just about anyone out. Were those kind of the drivers for you to say, hey, I'm done with this, I'm going to go do something else? Or what was the kind of final conversation you had with yourself where you're like, hey, I'm done with this path, I'm going to go a different direction?
Yeah, I'm very self-motivated. And, as I look back on my career, and I trust me, I don't mean this from a place of arrogance, but I must be super talented because I am incredibly difficult to work for, or work with. So when I think, not from a client standpoint, but I think the people I worked for, my bosses, the only way they kept me around is I must have been doing a really good job. But I didn't like working for them, and they probably didn't like working for me. And so that was really the thing. Like, as I thought about it, like, do I want to work for anybody else anymore? And the answer was no. And it became so strong that there was no possibility of me working for anybody else. And I think that everybody was thankful that I wasn't going to work for them. But that was really a big driver. And then I had the confidence, but for me it was coming to the point where I didn't worry about life from a financial standpoint. I had met with some financial success and felt comfortable taking the leap. In hindsight, I should have taken the leap way before and put more time behind it, and I would be doing 2 or 3 times what I'm doing now. So, and that's a lot of the advice I give my clients. Today is a better day than tomorrow, and yesterday was better than today, because the sooner you start and you can really build something, the better off you are.
Sure. There's very few people, if any, that regret taking the leap and trying out the opportunity, and especially in the franchise system, because it's kind of, and the way I view it, Mark, is it's kind of a bridge between, the corporate world and the true startup, kind of zero. Like, you have a pretty good head start when you go the franchise route, right? And so,
yep.
I haven't spoken to anyone who regrets leaving the corporate world and trying this out, even if they're not successful. Everyone learns a lot from it. What you mentioned you were kind of financially stable and you were in a good position. What did your wife think of it, and what was the family dynamic and conversation there?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. So I remember I hired a financial franchise consultant as I was going through the process myself. and I engaged my wife because it's critical to have your spouse or partner involved. And we were on the call, and the consultant said, "So Mark, what happens if you get a job?" And my wife said, "He's going to take it." And so she was kicking and screaming is probably strong, but she didn't completely buy into it. And that's ultimately, I think, what happens a lot with the process. If people go through the entire process, their fears and uncertainties, turn into facts and information and data and knowledge, and they go away. And as we went through the process and learned, she bought into it more and more. But I think her initial response was absolutely not. It wasn't that she didn't believe in me. It was that I was making a nice living, and she liked the money going into, every 2 weeks into the account. And now what happens is I do well financially as well, but more importantly, I'm happy. And, it comes to the point in your life where that's all that matters. And I need money too. It's all good, but I'm happy and I enjoy my life every day in a way that I never did before. And that is why, aside from financial success, that is why I should have done this, way earlier. And I think that the biggest challenge that I see with my clients is just engaging them in the process. They get scared before. I had a conversation today, which was interesting. I spoke to the client yesterday. He's in northeastern Ohio, the Cleveland area. And I spoke to the husband, and he was all set. I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to do this. And I said, "Get your wife on the phone." He goes, "She's on board." I said, "Yeah, but it's helpful if the three of us meet." So we go through the consult, and I do my consults via Google Meet. So I get to see people's faces and reaction. And I said, "I'm not sure the two of you are on the same page." And I said to the wife, and I won't use the name, but I said to her, "What do you think about this?" She goes, "I don't like it." I said, "So what you guys need to do is work this out. I can't solve that, but I can tell you, if you go through the process and you learn and your fears dissipate, and they will, you'll make an informed decision." And, Calvin, most of the people I talk to do not join a franchise. Okay. Yeah, it's 1 out of 4 maybe who engage in the process do, and that's okay because they make the decisions for a variety of reasons. But I walk them through the process, and I always tell them, "Listen, you're going to procrastinate making a decision, but we're going to get to a certain point." I give them 6 factors to assess franchises in or through, and once and a way of collating that information. And I'll ask them, "Do you have the information you need in each of these 6 factors?" And if the answer is yes, then make a decision. And if you don't, what's the information we need to help you get to make a smart choice? And there are a lot of reasons to join a business, and there are a lot of reasons not to. But you just want to get the emotions out of it as much as you can, because if the emotions drive your life, you're not going to be happy.
Sure. Mark, I want to go back to to your transition period, and you mentioned having the conversation with a then franchise consultant with you and your wife, and that process. What was it? Talk through the path that got you from looking at franchise options and different things to saying, "Hey, I'm going to be the franchise consultant." And did you start off working on your own at that? Did you join an existing group or an existing franchise that does this? What's the story there?
Yeah, so I joined the group, and I made a mistake, candidly, joining that group. It wasn't the right one for me. The training and the expectations that they set were just not realistic. I learned that relatively quickly, and switched. I'm now part of IFPG, the International Franchise Professionals Group, and it's awesome. Great people, great support. Great relationships. I have access to over 500 franchise companies for my clients. But at the end of the day, it was an easy transition for me because I was ready. And so, that was the easiest part. And with a lot of my clients, when I say it's 1 out of 4, I'm not sure some of them won't come back to me a year or two later. And I always ask a question. and this was the question I posed to my wife because it was a family decision, as it should be. She's not involved in my business at all. However, it's her life too. And whatever I do professionally impacts her. And I said to her, I said, honey, I'm not happy. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like this about my career. And I said, if I don't make a change, how is any of this going to be any different? And, the answer is it's not. And so it's just understanding that, like, if the pain is significant enough, and, people feel pain different ways. For a lot of people, pain is a catalyst to have a conversation with me, but it's not significant enough for them to make a change. And I think ultimately it's easier for all of us to keep doing what we're doing because it takes a lot more energy to change than to stay the same. And the bigger the change, the greater the magnitude of energy you need. And so, if I'm buying a new car, it takes some energy, but not a lot. But if I'm changing my whole life and I'm leaving a job and the salary and the benefits and the quote unquote security, security so that they can lay me off whenever they want. But when I'm leaving that to start a business where, there's uncertainty because I haven't succeeded at it yet. That's the part that I think takes a lot of energy, and a lot of people don't have a significant enough catalyst for that. So they'll explore, but it doesn't get them over the hump.
Sure. Mark, that's interesting. You mentioned earlier in the conversation that, so far this year you've helped close 40 deals, which is phenomenal. And that's almost, one per week this year. But then you also said 1 out of every 4 people that you talk to are the ones that actually move forward. So 3 out of 4 aren't doing that. Is it that they're not in a big enough pain point with where they are to make the switch? Do they not find the right opportunity? What are the reasons that you're seeing, so many people get interested about it and then, get cold feet?
Yeah. So, it's a lot of, we didn't find the right brand. The royalties are too high, things that really speak to, there's not enough pain, or enough motivation, right? Because people either run from something or are drawn to something. And there has to be enough of that. And with them, it just isn't. So, what winds up happening is they'll rationalize and say, it was the brand. No, it's not the brand, it's you. And that's okay. You can make that decision. So there's no judgment there, but there's nothing wrong with the brand because, look at the numbers of the brand. And I always tell people, if you don't think you're going to be in the top 50% of any franchise that we look at, you shouldn't, consider them. And, a lot of them, like I had somebody said he doesn't think he can make enough money. He wanted to make $150,000 a year. So he's looking at a brand that has a $1.1 million average revenue. And the margins are probably 20+%. And so, to net. And so I said to him, he's like, I can't make enough money. I said, well, because you're going to be in the bottom quarter. Because if you're in the top half, just look at the numbers. And I don't get into talking financials with people, but as we were talking it through, and I said to him, so own it. What is holding you back? And, he said, I'm just scared. He said, my wife doesn't want me to do it. And, if it doesn't work out, and it's easy to blame the spouse also, by the way. And so that was it. But I think it's just, they can't overcome that fear. And a lot of it's inertial, right? The reason it took me, 50 years of my life to be in business for myself is because my mom worked for the school system, safe, not entrepreneurial. My father, graduated college and worked for the same pharmaceutical company until the day he retired. And they both had wonderful careers and they created wonderful lives for their children, but there wasn't a lot of entrepreneurial spirit with that. And so I think that's so hard for people to break away. This is who I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be. And the people we surround ourselves with. I'm working with a couple of candidates right now from General Electric. And, they're a culture. They've been in that culture for 30 years. And their peers aren't looking to start their own businesses because, these large corporations, you drink a lot of the Kool-Aid.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard to break away from that.
Sure. Sure.
And by the way, the drinking the Kool-Aid is just such an awful analogy. So sorry for that one.
That's fine. Mark, were your parents around to see you, make the switch and to take the leap on this endeavor? Or?
My mom is. My dad, no.
Yeah.
Wish he was though.
Sure. What was your mom's thoughts and feedback on it whenever you told her, hey, I'm gonna do this wild thing, and chase it. That's not safe and there is a lot of risk.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a story. So I went to law school and I graduated law school, did well, got a job with a law firm, took the bar, passed, quit 6 weeks after I started. And I called my mother up and she said, what do you mean you quit? You had a great job. Why would you quit? And I said, because I wanted to be happy and this wasn't going to make me happy. And this was obviously 30 years ago. So this time she kept her mouth shut. But she's really happy now. I think she would have said, what are you doing? I was making a ridiculous amount of money in what I was doing before, and nobody would, in their right mind, leave that. Except I don't have my right mind, and I make about the same, and I'm happier. But I mean, and I don't always, I rarely recommend people to leave a job where they're getting paid, and we talk about how we could transition into it. Because I know that fear factor, the more you're leaving behind is harder. But I did it, and I'm a success story. Because the reality is, I always tell my clients, hey, look, I'm nervous. I don't know if I'm going to succeed at this. So I'll say to them, hey, Calvin, listen, tell me your career. You reached the pinnacle. You're a vice president of sales or operations or finance. You're good at what you do, right? Yeah. You didn't fail at your career, did you? No, I succeeded. So this brand is a good brand, right? Yeah, it's a great brand. Okay, so you who's really good and has this huge track record of success, and this brand that's really good has a huge track record of success, when you marry them, exactly why is it not going to work? And hard for them to give a good answer to that.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's the false sense of security that people have in the corporate world, and
yep.
Obviously you've been doing this a long time, Mark. A lot of people left the corporate jobs either voluntarily or involuntarily, for the last 20 months or so. Have you seen an increase of people, looking at this as an opportunity, or how has that changed compared to, I know you were in a similar space, in, the late 2008, 2009 time frame, are you seeing similarities there or what are you seeing as the seasonality, I guess?
Yeah, no, great question. Really what I think is going on right now is there are a lot of people who are, this is the catalyst for them to look, but it's not really what they want to do with their lives. It is in a lot of respects, right? So it checks the boxes. I want freedom. I want autonomy. I want to work from home. I don't want to go back to having the long commute. So it checks all those boxes, but they're not emotionally ready to leave that behind. So I'm seeing a lot of that. So a lot of people just exploring. The market's changed a little bit now because of the Great Resignation. There are a lot of folks who are getting jobs that may not have gotten jobs before. So there's some of that. And ultimately what winds up happening is the people who are doing it for the right reasons and really understand what they want from their lives, and this matches up, they're moving forward. And then the people who aren't, you vet them very quickly. And like today I had three conversations that were all meaningful conversations with wonderful people, but ended with, I don't know that this is right for you. And, part of what I do, I think maybe the biggest thing that I can do for people is to dissuade them from it. And if it's right, if I tell somebody it's not right for them and they come back and say, no, Mark, I really want to do this, then I'm wrong. But a lot of times, they don't do that. And, so if you push them away, it's sort of the pendulum, right? If you push the pendulum, they want to be over here. If you push it back here and then they fight for it, it comes back strong and they spring in and they succeed at a high level. And it's what they want to do. I don't want anybody to do something that they don't want to do. And so, try to take it away from them and tell them all the reasons why it doesn't make sense. And then if they want it, then that's a great candidate, and that's somebody who's going to do well and crush it.
Sure. Mark, is there a certain, person, demographic, work experience, things like that you see, goes through this process and ends up pulling the trigger? And then, I don't know how much you engage with your clients after the fact, years down the road. Is there a certain demographic that you see actually has more success over the long run in the space?
Yeah, it's a lot of success with sales and operations guys, right? They're driven, they're results oriented, they have goals that they have to achieve in their corporate careers. And that translates really, really well into the franchise space. They do very well. And from a personality or behavioral profile, I don't ask my clients to do this in most cases, but the DISC profile, I can talk to somebody and know if they're a D, an I, an S, or a C. And it's the D, it's the driver personality. Those are the people who are going to, go right to the top because and are able to make the decisions. The more analytical folks, I think it's harder for them. With doing any big decision, you never get to 100%. I was 100% certain when I married my wife. She's still not even close to 100%, right? And so I think what winds up happening with a lot of people is that they, if they're real analytical and slower paced, they're never going to get to where they want to get to, because even if they decide to join a franchise, which will take them a little bit longer, every time they have to make a decision, am I going to spend $10,000 on marketing or $10,000 more on marketing? Am I going to turn this dial, and what are my KPIs? They're slower to do that. And I think as an entrepreneur running your own business, you have to be able to make decisions quickly. So I think it's the sales, the ops guys, the driver personalities that make the decisions and move forward and do really well.
Sure. Mark, one of the things that worries people or maybe holds people back from making the decision to even look at this as an opportunity is the financial piece, right? Getting the funding to get going. Are you seeing a change in that over the last 20 months with different government programs and the SBA and things like that? And how big of a factor is that really if someone doesn't necessarily have $300,000 in cash sitting around? What are the opportunities out there for that?
Sure. Calvin, I'll tell you, the financial piece is almost never the real objection. Now, does it get articulated as one? Absolutely. But I don't believe it's ever the real one. Realistically, you can get into a $200,000 opportunity with $50,000 of liquidity. Could be home equity. I'm seeing a lot of ROBs, rollover for business startups, which is a program that the government has that allows you to use non-employer-based retirement funds, your IRA, and no interest, no penalties. I'm seeing a lot of that. But, SBA loans, the government guarantees a portion of them. So the rates and terms are really good. The money's available. I think it's just, in most cases, just an easy way of people deferring. But the change in financing this year, just more ROBs, more using retirement funds or self-funding.
Sure. Mark, what are the 3 or 5 brands from a franchisor standpoint that you're most excited about right now?
Yeah, so I'm hesitant to share individual brands, but I'll give you categories because I don't want somebody to say this is the perfect brand, but it's not available in my territory. But I have a great coaching franchise. I'll give you a name. It's Focal Point. And they're really doing a fabulous job. Also in the business space, love P3. When you get in, I really like home services, low cost of entry, a lot of lead generation from the franchisors. So whether it's kitchen remodeling, junk removal, bathroom remodeling, flooring companies, not sexy businesses, but really good, and you're competing against a lot of mom and pop, so there's a huge opportunity there. Yep. Love the automotive space if we're talking brick and mortar. You got to be careful, I think, in certain of the other spaces. There are certainly good fitness, health and beauty, pet care, children's opportunities, but not across the board. You just have to be careful. Certainly anybody who's listening to this wants to learn about some specific brands, let's chat.
Sure. And Mark, if someone's interested in having a conversation with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Phone's best, 973-452-4558.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, Mark. Great insight. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And for anyone who took the time to listen to our conversation today, hope you join us next time on the Social Z Franchise Happy Hour. Thanks.